again, and welcome to the Author Roundup. This special segment of the Book Connection Show showcases emerging indie authors who join us for a discussion of their newly published books. Join us for a conversation with our next guest author. Hi there. Welcome to Author Roundup. My name is Emma. I will be your host for today's episode. Today I'm joined by author Scott Cisney. He is a retired aerospace engineer, and this is his first book, Chronicles of Gods, Book 1. It was published in July of this year, and he is well on into his second book of this series to be titled similarly. Hi, Scott. Thanks for being here.
Hi, happy to be here.
Yeah. So your book sounds fascinating. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, it's a science fiction book, and it's about our mankind's first journey to an exoplanet, but it's driven by necessity. The Earth is dying. So, and then things take a big turn, but that's the genre that it fits in.
Okay. And so what inspired you to write this story and to set it into the world 2340, correct?
Yeah, about 320 years. I try to, what I wanted to do was write realistic science fiction, and I figured in about 300 years we would be able to do this and this and this. And so, and in about 300 years, we'll probably have some really serious problems that might drive us to do what the book does.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what drove me there.
Okay. And have you enjoyed writing? Have you always enjoyed writing? I know your career is very different from
Yeah.
from writing or creative writing.
Yeah. Everybody has a talent, I believe. I didn't used to believe that. Wondering what is my talent?
Yeah.
But in my occupation, anytime a report needed to be written, a big report that would have to convince the Air Force or somebody to do something, I got stuck with the job because
Oh no.
Scott Cisney can write. So I always had a little bit of that in me. And
Uh-huh.
anyway,
Okay. And so, diving into, the subject of the book, so there's, an asteroid how did the idea of turning an asteroid into a living spaceship come to you, basically? Because that's a big part of the book.
um, well, that's a good question. I'm trying to think. The we need to be protected on a very long space journey from cosmic radiation, and living inside an asteroid seemed like a solution to that problem. Uh, and especially where the journey is going to be, 1,000+ years, it
Hmm.
felt like that was a way to accomplish that. They'll live inside it. They'll have a giant nuclear reactor on the surface that can provide an unlimited fuel source for the ion engines. And so it seemed like, rather than trying to build, because, in a lot of the science fiction that I've seen, we're
Hmm.
going to Mars or something like that.
Yeah.
And, once in a while, I'm thinking of one, it was Away, it was on Netflix, and then they canceled it.
Oh no.
And it was a few years ago. But anyway, but they had like water, in between the walls of the ship to protect the people from solar radiation, cosmic radiation, and that
Hmm.
was one way to do it. But if you have a lot of people, you want to colonize another planet, you have to have something that's probably more realistic and more protective to the people. And so that's kind of why I thought about it. Plus, there was a good picture
Very
of
cool.
the asteroid that I found.
Oh, that works. That worked out. So your story definitely blends science fiction with more specifically spiritual and philosophical themes. What made you want to explore, those types of themes?
Yeah, that's a good question because I don't want to get off in the weeds, but but I've had some experiences in my life, I guess, after a
Mhm.
surgery a few years back where things kind of went wrong, and
Mhm.
I have a pretty strong idea that
Mhm.
what we see and can hear and touch and feel is not everything. that's out there.
Mhm.
I'll just
Mhm.
have to summarize it that way. And
Yeah.
so I felt like when you talk about something like the creation of life or the evolution of life on a planet, it's a miraculous thing. At least some people would probably use that word, but
Mhm.
I don't believe that it was happenstance. Now, I believe in the process by which life was created, evolution, you know,
Yeah.
but there was, I've always felt like there was probably some help,
Mhm.
assistance along the way. And so that that's why I wanted to write a book about, well, what would the nature of that help be? I mean, a lot of
Mhm.
people think of, like a supreme being or something creating life, but I took a little different turn on things, maybe because of some things that have happened to me where, yeah, what if they're people just like us, but they've just advanced further
Mhm.
than us?
Mhm.
I forget who it was. It was Isaac Asimov or somebody talking about what a miracle is, the definition. He said, some people can look at an event and say they can't explain it, and they'll say, "Oh, it's a miracle." But and I wish I had that quote in front of me. But
Mhm.
Isaac Asimov said any civilization that's sufficiently advanced can look at that same event and say, "Well, we can explain how that happened," you know.
Yeah.
And I think how it happened is explainable. In
Mhm.
fact, there's a little quote at the very beginning of my book. It says, "See if I can even quote and it's my
Yeah.
quote."
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It says, "It was always our mistake, perhaps our biggest one, to assume that the realms of knowledge would remain forever separated from things we considered unknowable." Like
Mhm.
right now, there's some things that everyone would have to say, well, that's unknowable. We just don't know.
Mhm.
Uh, but maybe it won't always be that way.
Yeah.
Maybe those two spheres of knowledge will start bumping into each other, overlapping and complementing each other.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah, that's really interesting. Do you think that there's any science fiction out there that kind of encapsulates the themes that you have, or do you think that have you come across science fiction books that have these sort of themes, or do you think your book is more unique in that aspect that brings up these sort of topics?
You know, I liked the books 2001 and
Mhm.
2010. Actually, I think there was another one, 3000 something. It was Arthur C. Clarke. And I was watching on YouTube one day and it was kind of going through, a lot of people watched the movie and it was a head scratcher. It's like, what's this movie really about?
Yeah, it's
And when I watched what they showed on YouTube, I realized that, where it kept showing this baby and it kept showing this old man, and
Mhm.
it's like, what's going on here? What Arthur C. Clarke was trying to say was, this monolith that's in his book, this rectangular object, which is an
Mhm.
embassy for the unknowable.
Mhm.
And I think what he was trying to say was something similar to what I've tried to say or develop in my book, and that is there's something out there that's a higher intelligence. And so I think there are some books out there like 2010, for instance,
Mhm.
and I like books like that because they take me on a journey, science fiction. I love that. But
Mhm.
they also throw in the unknowable stuff and say, maybe there's an explanation. Here's a possible explanation. Here, I wrote a book.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah. And some people really love that, or some people don't like that at all. But, it's nice to have that um that type of book for sure. Because some
mhm.
people don't like to know the unknowing, but a lot of people do, and I think that's great. So the level of scientific detail in the ship's creation in your book is very impressive. How much research went into building your future world in your book?
Well, I retired a few years earlier than I thought I would, and I started watching a lot of documentaries. I started
Mhm.
watching the great courses. It was on
Okay.
Prime.
Yeah.
And there were episodes on the physics of time, Dr. Sean
Mhm.
Carroll, and they're like college courses. They're like 34 episodes, and well, anyway, but through the years, I've just watched a lot of that stuff, and I
Yeah.
just picked stuff up along the way. So to answer your question, I didn't really spend, I mean, I looked things up and that, but it wasn't like I was digging into a lot of details. I
Oh,
already had a lot of the details that I needed.
oh wow. Okay, cool. Because you're just overall interested in this type of
Yeah,
thing and science in general. That's really cool.
yeah.
Um, so what did, or I guess based off of that, so did you have any challenges that you faced in making the science both believable and exciting for readers?
Yeah, I've actually thought about that. Did I go too much into the weeds? I know I've read other people's books, like Tom
Mhm.
Clancy's books, and I remember thinking in one of his books, he basically tells you how to build a nuclear bomb.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
And I mean, he was
Uh,
getting down to how the plutonium was machined and so forth. And I thought, am I going too much into the weeds? And really, space travel is possible. We know that it is.
mhm,
What we don't know if it's possible is long-term, long-distance space travel. Can we pull that off? Because we really haven't done that yet.
mhm,
But as far as what we need to do it, I think it exists or it could exist, in a relatively short period of time. I mean, 300 years in my book, it's 320 years or so in the future. That may seem like a long time, but really, especially as you get older, you realize, well, that's not that long.
yeah.
we
Yeah.
could we could develop these things, and especially when you look at the pace of change of science and
Mhm.
technology and how fast things are changing, I may
Yeah.
be behind the curve in the book.
Okay. And so another thing about your book, the aliens are, because there's aliens in your book,
Mhm.
they're called the mothers and they play a very, major role in your story. Can you describe them a little bit for us, like who they are and I guess what they represent to you as an author?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, one of the many documentaries and things that I've watched, some of them dealt with ancient aliens. We've probably all seen a show or two
Yeah.
with that type of a plot. And it seems like it's possible, of course, we don't know, that maybe there were ancient aliens, helping us out, especially early on. And
Mhm.
so this group that is in my book that was here developing the intelligent and virtuous species on Earth tens of thousands of years ago, and really they were here much longer than that, but I use tens of thousands.
Mhm.
This group was referred to as the Mothers because it was a matriarchal society. Now, there were
Mhm.
men, and men did do things, but the women, it turns out, and had gifts that were important to be given to each species that they developed. And it was always given through one of the women who had the gifts, because not all
Mhm.
the women had the gifts of the mothers, they called it, like mind reading, for instance.
Oh, okay.
And so this group of aliens, that's they were here, with us when we were just, first developing as Homo sapiens, and they show up again later on in the year 2342 as mankind is, our planet is dying, and they show up in the form of a message that the ship receives from outside the solar system, and it's from the mothers. And
Mhm.
then this little girl, she has a dream, and this character, or this Eve of Eden, who was the Eve in, and you can kind of see a lot of things in my book are like, well, this is something that sounds like it's from the Bible, Eve.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
her husband is Adorn, and they have a son named Seth, and things like that.
Mhm.
And we've seen this in a lot of times when there's a story and it's thousands of years old, it gets told and retold and told and retold, and things
Mhm.
get changed. And
Yeah.
that's, I think, what happened with some of these original stories. In fact, like the reason why the aliens had to leave early and couldn't really finish the job on Earth was there was a comet that was going to hit the Earth, and it was going to melt the last remaining ice sheet from the very last ice age, because the Earth had started warming up in the year,
Mhm.
10,900, before Christ, and all of a sudden this comet hits and it melts the ice sheet in North America, the Laurentian ice sheet, and sea levels rise by 400 feet within a few days.
Mhm.
And that is, and that's a real event, by the way. It's called the Younger Dryas Climate Anomaly. We went back into but it wasn't thousands of years, it was just a few hundreds of years. We went back into a mini ice age after that happened. It raised sea levels, it halted the flow of the Gulf Stream, and the earth became cold again. And and millions were killed by, sea levels that rise 400 feet would be a catastrophe.
Mhm.
Nowadays, it would be a mega catastrophe.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of cities are just, a few feet above sea level. But
Yeah.
so so that was something that happened then that forced them to leave, and it put the earth in a position of where it was going to have some real problems. And that's kind of the story of, like, yeah, the earth had real problems, but it turns out as you read the book that there's these problems created opportunities, because the spiritual part of the book is we live, we die, we're reborn, what a lot of people believe call reincarnation, and living in difficult circumstances, and that provides opportunities for growth. And
Mhm.
we sometimes see that as suffering and we question why it happens, but it's just part of life.
Mhm.
Everybody would have to agree that it is.
Mhm.
And so, a lot of people on Earth in the book, I don't remember if it was probably in the second book where they said this was a great opportunity for many souls to develop, because of all the wars and things that happened on the Earth.
Yeah, for
And now I
sure.
forgot your question. I'm sorry. I answered it, but
Um, well, I asked about the mothers and what they represent to you. So yeah, that was
oh yeah, they represent the creative force, that entity that we can't see or touch or feel. We don't know about them. And I, as I said earlier, I believe that there was help that was given to the process of the Earth being created. We had a Mars-sized planet, Theia, that hit the Earth, and very early on in our history, 4 billion years ago.
Mhm.
And the Earth and this planet were broken into many pieces, and over time they reformed. It wasn't the end of the world. It would have been the end of the world if we'd have been around, but
Mhm.
it reformed. And so now we had a moon, a large moon, which is really unusual for moons in our solar system, to have this really large moon compared to the size of the planet, the Earth.
Mhm.
And because we had that, it solved so many problems for us. Like, it stabilized our axis of rotation so we could have predictable seasons,
Mhm.
and that was just one thing. But otherwise, like Mars, for instance, its rotational axis has, shifted by 90 degrees. And, life can't really evolve in
Mhm.
a situation where, it's temperate and now it's frozen.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
the mothers represent, but they work for somebody else, and the somebody
Mhm.
else that's above the mothers, they're referred to as the ones. And in book one, there's not a whole lot that's said about who these people are, other than that they
Mhm.
live in the energetic universe, not in the physical universe. And the mothers work for the ones. So there's this hierarchy, there's this organization that's going through the galaxy and the universe, creating life, creating the opportunities for people to be
Mhm.
born there and to progress just like they had done. So that's
Yeah.
who they represent. And they love us and they care about us. They're not, enemies, or,
Yeah. They're
that.
matronly. Yeah. And you mentioned earlier about a character, the Eve of Eden. That character is very interesting. Can you share a little bit more about the character's uniqueness and what it brings to the story?
Well, Eve was a daughter of the Sky Lords in the year 10,912 BC.
Hmm.
And she's just a young girl. She's probably 18, 20 years old. She's very young. And these ancient aliens, the Sky Lords, or the Mothers, the local people on Earth called them the Sky Lords, but they were known also as the Mothers.
Mhm.
They realize they have to leave because this comet's going to come and it's going to destroy their facilities and that. And
Mhm.
so Eve is given she's given an opportunity or a choice to remain and marry this. He's an older guy, man. It doesn't say how old he is, but he's probably 30s or something, and marry this man who's a widow, Adorn, and she'll now have to lead a group of those people down from Eden, which is in Turkey, down to the Great Cracked Valley, which is the Great Rift Valley in the
Mhm.
old country in Kenya, which is where in the book it's referred to as the original home of all the upright peoples. And because they get told it'll be safe down there, it'll still be temperate, you can still grow crops, it won't get hit by any of the comets or anything. So Eve is young and she's got this really big responsibility. She's going to be the mother of the new world. And through her genes and through her children, she'll pass on to her female offspring. Although
Mhm.
once in a while it gets passed to a male, her son
Mhm.
Seth. And these women, these daughters that she has and her granddaughters and so on, they
Mhm.
will be the essentially the advisors to the great civilizations. They'll help them and lead them in peaceful ways. So Eve
Okay.
has this gigantic responsibility, and she's just so young,
Yeah.
and she's got to pull it off. And it's the same challenge that happens thousands of years later to Terra. She's a 10-year-old little girl, and she gets told she'll be the mother of the new world.
Mhm.
And I'm telling you that in book two, at the end of book one, um, Tara, there's a chapter. It's the second to last chapter. It's called "Becoming." Got to remember what the name of the chapter was. "Becoming the Mother" or something to that effect.
Mhm.
And she has a choice to make, a big choice. And by choosing the way she did, she's able to fulfill her mission on Terra Nova. I'll say that much. At the end of book two, uh, something else happens at the end of that book, and she has to perform what looks like a biblical miracle in order
Mhm.
to save people. And when she does that at the end of book two, in the book it says they always knew that Tara was special, that she loved them and that she cared about them.
Mhm.
But now they looked at her as the goddess of Terra Nova.
Mm. Nice.
And the title of that chapter is Becoming the Goddess of Terra Nova. So, it's her journey is one that with each book ends with her taking a big step forward
Mhm.
and further. And book three is going to be a challenge because I have to do a big time jump kind of.
Oh, okay. Ooh,
Um,
okay.
and
I love how like female focused your book is. Did you do that on purpose or was that something that kind of just evolved?
well, that's a good question. I'm glad you asked that question actually,
Yeah.
because it really is something that I consciously thought about. I
Okay.
grew up here in Utah, and of course, a lot of people are Mormons,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of Christian churches, for instance, are, and through the centuries, a lot of Christian churches and a lot of other organizations are very male dominated. I mean, we've not been able to pull off getting a female president. Um,
Correct. Yes.
but in churches, even there, the leaders are men, especially in like some. And this is not a denigration of anyone's religion, but it just females by virtue of their sex, they just don't get the opportunities. And I guess there was a day early on when I was writing the book when I first started, and I said maybe I was feeling especially rebellious. And I said,
Who knows
what
what
would
was going on
what
in
would
your life?
happen if we just got it wrong and it was supposed to be the other way? And
Yeah.
so because the truth is both sexes have really are meant to work together and they have really
Yes.
important jobs to do.
Yeah.
And there is no reason why a woman can't do virtually most of the jobs that men do. And
Mm-hmm.
we've just, I mean, I can see why we evolved that way. I mean, if you're hunting a, a giant buffalo like they do, actually they do that, and that's one of the fun parts in book one. They accidentally go back in time and they've got to kill a giant, I mean, these are extinct animals now,
Yeah.
and you could see how men probably being stronger would probably have just evolved more into a leadership role, but it didn't
Mm.
have to stay that way as long as it did. And I
Right.
guess, as I
Right.
said, I probably felt kind of rebellious on one of
Yeah.
those days, and I just said, "Let's change things up."
That's
And
good.
it
I
was a
love it.
spur of the moment decision too.
I love it. I think it's great. Yeah. Well, also your book explores, very big ideas like survival and morality and evolution. What main message or what's a message that you hope readers take away from your book?
Well, um, I I've had a discussion with recently with one of my daughters.
Oh,
And I know what she was saying to me is something that I've heard from a lot of young people.
mm,
When the last job I had a lot of young engineers kind of working with
mm,
me or for me,
mm-hmm,
and they were very pessimistic about the future. It just felt that way, and understandably so. I can
mm,
understand why you know, uh, some of the same things that people are saying now, like Social
yeah,
Security won't be there when I retire. They had said the same things when in the 1980s to me.
right, right, yeah,
And so I have a perspective that I don't think that you only get by just living, long enough. And
yeah,
I think that one of the main things that I want to give people from the book is our lives, and not just our lives, but our society, our culture, our race has a purpose. And I can tell you that
mm-hmm,
because of some things that have happened to me
mm,
that someday maybe I'll write a book about. But our lives aren't pointless.
right,
It looks to us like things just happen, bad luck, good luck. And
mm-hmm,
one of the biggest, most surprising things I learned from the one experience I had was that nothing is accidental.
mm,
Everything that happens to us, it looks like it's just an accident or bad luck or whatever, but
yeah,
it's not. And our lives have a purpose. I
mm,
truly believe that and don't doubt it. And I hope that the book, when we tell ourselves stories, it's easier for people to listen to big ideas. I think if you try to preach to people, people turn
yeah,
off,
yeah,
But if you tell a story and you introduce an idea or a concept, I think it's easier to listen and more people will have that, the light bulb comes on and they think about it. Could be that way,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it creates I guess I'll use this stuff I've learned from my therapist, new neural pathways, new ways of thinking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, thanks for sharing that so much. I think it's great your perspective, and the way that you write is very clear and like the metaphors and the deeper meaning behind your book, I think is great. I think it comes across, through you in this interview. What would you say your writing style is now that you are an author? What do you think your writing style was, or how do you feel about um, your writing in general now that you've written a book and multiple books now?
I didn't know how to do it at all.
Really? See, it doesn't seem
And
that way. Like you seem like very a natural writer and speaker and author.
well, I did have some help from a lady, a younger lady that she has written a couple of books, and I think
Hmm.
she has an English degree, and she helped kind of edit the first part of the first book, and I mean, I learned a lot from her, and
Really? Okay.
and I had to learn because I really didn't. I've read a lot of books, but there's a difference between reading books and writing books, and so my style is one of it's changed a lot from those first few chapters and those first few pages of the first
Hmm.
book. and I look at the second book now that I've written,
Hmm.
and it's a lot easier, and I enjoy it a lot more because some of that learning curve, I've moved up the learning curve some. And
Great.
so now when I put something that's humorous in the book, which I really like humor,
Hmm.
and it kind of breaks the seriousness of the book sometimes. And it's just a lot easier for me to do it now. And yeah, I
Nice.
read a lot of Stephen King books too, and of course, a lot of his stuff is kind of and maybe crude, or but
Yeah.
but it is entertaining,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
so I guess I tried to have a little bit of that in there too. I mean, the whole story of where they hunt the water buffalo, and the men fail
Hmm.
to get kill the water buffalo, and the one character's girlfriend, Stephanie, she kills one. And her boyfriend is Dieter. He's a German guy. They're back on the Earth. It's 10,000 BC,
Hmm.
and he chokes. He falls down, and he's going to get trampled. And the Seth's wife Nambi, she throws a spear with the otlotl thing, and it drops from the sky at supersonic speed and buries itself in the shoulder of the animal just a few feet before it gets to Dieter, and he
Oh my
been
gosh.
trampled to death. And Seth had told all of them, because they were very they didn't want to hunt the water buffalo because these things were gigantic. How can you guys kill these things? How did you survive? And
Yeah.
Seth goes, "Oh, we know what we're doing." And he goes, "I've never seen anybody die doing this." Well, he comes running up after Dieter almost died, and he goes, "See, I told you nobody would die, but I gotta say, you came the closest." And then
Oh, that's
Stephanie
funny.
comes up and she goes, "I got one." And he goes, "You got one?" He can't
That's
believe it.
cute.
But anyway, it's
Yeah.
just kind of humorous and funny. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
writing those kind of elements, putting those kind of elements in the book is a lot of fun for me. So,
Yeah. How did you go about, or did you enjoy the character development and creating all these characters and coming up with names and having these complexes of characters? What was that like for you?
it was a little bit hard because I had to come up with names in some cases that weren't Earth names, and and so I had to kind of make up some names. and
Cool. That's
and I
awesome.
got kind of confused, I'll be honest. As I was reviewing the book and the editing process,
Hmm.
sometimes I made a mistake about which character I was referring to. Um,
Mm.
but the character development, it just sort of happened. Like there's one character, as they're on their way to Terra Nova, they they see these blinking lights on this planet, and it's orbiting this red dwarf star. And anyway, they land on the planet because they figure maybe there's somebody there, maybe they need help. And
Hmm.
they find these people that fled their planet after the enemies of the mothers took over. And one of the people there becomes kind of a main character. His name is Timai,
Hmm.
and he turns into kind of a Mr. Spock type character. He's very
Yeah.
innocent, and he's very straightforward and
Mhm.
logical. And
Yeah.
he's always asking, well, what did this mean? The bluff, the bottom line up front. And in his culture, they can tell who likes who based
Hmm.
upon pheromones. And at one point, this is another humorous point, he offers to help the Earth people because it's very difficult for you. You can't read the pheromones. I can do
Hmm.
that. I can advise who likes who. I can help you. And and Stephanie, one of the characters, goes, "Oh, you really shouldn't do that. We've got our own way of doing this, because she's
Hmm.
getting embarrassed because he notices that Dieter likes Stephanie and Stephanie likes Dieter, and he's like, he likes you.
Oh, yeah.
So
I
she
love
has to
characters
kind of
like
steer
that.
him away from doing that.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
both embarrassed, and.
So when did you start writing your book and how long did it take you to complete this book? I don't know if we've got that to that yet.
Well, I'm trying to remember because it took me. I started it. Let's see. I started it in earnest after I retired in July of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got to a point where I had kind of some problems with depression, and I kind of just stopped writing. I started
Mm-hmm.
seeing a therapist, and I have to give, my therapist a lot of credit. I just had stopped writing this book, which I really wanted to do. I'd always wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And I asked her, like, well, how can I just get back into it? And she goes, well, just start again, 5 minutes a day, 10
Mm,
minutes a day. Just start doing it. And,
mm,
you don't have to push yourself so hard,
mm,
spending 10 hours a day or whatever. Just start small. And
mm,
then every day increase it a little bit. And it worked. Before long I was writing again. And so as far as how long it took, there was a dead period in between July of 2022 and I think it got published in July of 2025.
mm,
So that's 3 years, but there was a dead period in there. It might have been about a year. So I think it took about a year and a half to 2 years to write it.
okay.
But with the second book, I think I wrote it in about 6 months, and
That's crazy.
it was just a lot easier. It was
Yeah.
a lot funner, and
Mhm.
because I felt like when I retired, it was like, what do I want to just sit in the easy chair with the remote and just
Oh, yeah. That's
watch
scary. Yeah.
watch certain news stations and get grumpy and shout at the TV?
Yeah. Or like, do I want to do a hobby? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just felt like, well, I might as well be 6 feet under if I'm just going to do that. And well, so anyway, I guess it's not even correct to say I'm retired anymore. I told my wife that. I said
Yeah.
I have a job now. I work for myself, and
Yeah.
and it's not like the other jobs. I actually like this one,
Oh, that's
and
awesome. Glad you stuck with it. Yeah. That's
so
great.
I didn't really retire. Of course, I haven't
Yeah.
made any money yet, but anyway.
So is there a part of your book that was the most fun to write in book one?
Yeah, and this might not be the most favorite part for a lot of other people. There are a lot of really good parts. As I've gone through and making the audio book and as I was going through, editing, I started looking at it and I'm going, I can't believe I wrote this. But one part that I liked is when they land on Terra Nova. And
Mhm.
I kind of stole some lines, if you will, from because I was born in 1960. I grew up and we landed on the moon when I was
Mhm.
9 years old.
Mhm.
See, would that be right? 1969, yeah,
Mhm.
or almost nine. And so when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, they get down on the lunar surface and they say, Houston, this is Tranquility Base. The Eagle has landed. Well, in the book, Hatcher, who's Tara's, they're married now at that point in the book. They grew up together. They were childhood sweethearts. And anyway, when he lands, he says, let's see, how does he say it? He says, Calypso, this is Terra Nova Base Camp 1. The Sally Ride has landed. That's their ship, the Sally Ride. She's
Mhm.
the astronaut. And then later, when they actually leave the ship to go out onto the surface, just like in with Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, they put a plaque on the moon and it said, on this day in August 1969, men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon. We came in peace for all mankind. So I've got a similar thing where Gunner, who's one of the major characters, he's got a plaque, and the other two people that are with him on the surface, they're going, "What do you have there?" And he goes, "It's a plaque. What does it say?" Now I got to hope I get this right. He said, "I'll tell you what, I'm going to read it
Yes,
if I
please.
can find it, but if I can't find it, I'll have to paraphrase it. It'll take too long." But basically, the plaque says, um, "Here, men and women from the planet Earth first set foot upon Terra Nova, July 2352, CE, Earth Reckoning. We came in peace for all mankind." And I guess to me, I don't know, that almost feels spiritual. It feels like,
Mhm.
you know, uh, we are, and the story, one of the themes of the book is mankind ascends.
Mhm.
It doesn't look like we're progressing a lot of times, like we've taken 3 steps back and 1 step forward sometimes, maybe recently,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
no political, anyway. But it seems that way to a lot of people. I know my daughter was really kind of like, yeah, we'll never make it. And she was pretty depressed. And it was like,
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
over
it was hard.
yeah, over time, over the long period of time, to quote a former president, even, the long arc of history, bends towards, justice and truth and good, or something to
Mhm.
that effect. And over the long arc of time, we eventually, not just us individually, but we have, ascend, and and at this point, the people who created us now come to us and say, we need some help from you. You're ready to help us now. You've
Mhm.
ascended. And
Mhm.
so even though the earth was destroyed and there's only 3,000 human beings on this ship, they are the remnants of the human species,
Mhm.
and they're going to live on
Mhm.
because through all those, 300,000 years that Homo sapiens walked on the planet, they've we kept adapting,
Mhm.
improving. It didn't look like it at times, but we were.
Mhm.
And that's kind of a story of hope. You know,
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
there's a purpose, and even Eve of Eden tells, a group of the crew. She says, "We created you for a purpose that you do not yet understand."
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And so what has been the nicest feedback or review you've received about your book?
Well, actually, my therapist, who used to work she would review books for like the
Oh, cool.
the big publishers. Of course, she's a therapist now.
Uh-huh.
She said, or I gave her a copy, and she read it, and she said, what her job was, she would read books that people wrote, and then she'd write a synopsis, and then she would recommend, oh, this one is good.
Yeah.
HarperCollins should publish this, by the way. Anyway, got a call, and so she read it and she said, Scott, I was shocked. Those are her words. I thought it's his first book. It'll probably be kind of clumsy. She goes, I was just honestly shocked. She goes,
Oh,
I thought it would be, a nice try. But she goes, there's no question this would have been pushed forward.
oh, wow.
And I felt like it was a real honest, sincere compliment. And
Yeah.
so
That's
I'm
sweet.
taking it that way anyway.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think you should. What has your daughter thought about the book and family and friends? Did they know you were writing a book?
Yeah, I told him, and I think for a long time, because, well, like my therapist said, a lot of people want to write a book. They talk about writing a book and they do it for years even, but they don't write it. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of my children, for instance, or family members, they were like, "Oh, he can't write a book. We know what he can do, and he can't write a book." I'm thinking of like my siblings, okay, not my children necessarily. And
Mhm.
so I think when I finally did it, and the feedback I got was they were just shocked. It was like, you had that in you? And I'm like, yeah, I always knew I had that in me.
Oh.
Because I have to say this honestly, without going into my story, but I have to say this. I've always been that person who's been underestimated,
Mhm.
overlooked,
Mhm.
underappreciated.
Mhm.
And the truth is, and I'm not saying this in an arrogant way, I felt like there was a time in my life I felt like I could do anything I wanted to do. All I had to do was work hard enough because I had enough of the things you need to do anything.
Yeah.
And I do.
Yeah, that's great. And you're a published author. What would your younger self think about you publishing a book and um, being a science fiction author?
Well, I think my younger self would say, you can't do that. That's not
Oh,
something.
even you. Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
goodness.
I think we well, I'm thinking of an Eagles song. And already gone or something. I wish I could quote the song, but it's like something to the effect of like we have shackles on our arms and legs and we don't realize it, but we hold the key.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
I
Yeah.
think all of us, myself included, will limit ourselves. We'll put shackles on us and say we can do this, but we can't do that.
Hmm.
And there have been a couple times, like where one time where I could have died. We
Hmm.
were in a wilderness area in Arizona,
Oh my.
and we had to climb out. I was like, my friend that I worked with have you been down this canyon before? It had a river and it was, and I said, we need to get out now because we can't go back the way we came. The river is too swift. I mean, they'll find our bones 20 years from now.
Oh my gosh, that's
So we had to
terrifying.
climb up this vertical faced wall. And this
What?
is this is absolutely not something I'm afraid of heights.
Oh God.
But I realized I had no choice. I had to do it. And
Yeah.
it just made me realize like you'll read stories where people do amazing things if they're in, a desperate situation.
Yeah, that's true.
This was one of those situations where it was either do that or die. And
Mm,
you'll
scary.
and I did it. We all did it. None of us could do those.
Oh gosh, thank goodness.
And 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 so I think that that's what my younger self would get told
Yeah.
or would tell me is like you can't do that. But
Mm-hmm.
the reality is you can.
Mm-hmm.
And lots of
Sure.
people and I would say that I know one of your questions was lots of young people want to write a book and it's like, I got told this, you probably heard this, like when's the best day to plant a tree or when's the best time of season or whatever? And the answer is today.
Mhm.
And so when's the best time to write a book? Today. Start
Yeah, I love
today. If
that.
just a few sentences, whatever. And it's a learning process and that,
Yeah.
but you'll probably find out you can do it and you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Even like when your therapist said just even start with 5 minutes and then it became progressively more for you. Same with writing a book, starting a book. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
It's
Yeah.
it's each of us have, well, and this was one of the things that came through from this experience was we have no idea how wise we are. We just remember the here and the now. But
Yeah.
we have done things and we don't remember them. We all have way more ability. We are far greater than what we know right now.
Mm-hmm.
And, if people could realize that, it would unlock a lot of potential.
Mm-hmm. True.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
very
deep.
true.
I have to
It
put
is,
that in,
yeah.
I have to put that in a story because otherwise preachy, okay. But anyway,
So you are finished with book two? You're working on
yeah.
book three?
Well, I'm finished with book two, and they just sent it back to me a few days ago, and so now I've
Oh,
got to look at the edits, and I'll
yeah.
probably have to change the story some, and so it's probably a whole month of kind of going back and forth,
Maneuvering, yeah.
and then it'll go through the process of getting produced or published,
Uh-huh.
and book three I've just thought about, but I
Okay.
writing this working on this audio book, so I just didn't have time yet. But I by the end of the month, I'm hoping I can get back to okay, book three, the big time jump,
Oh
and
my
just
gosh, yeah,
and
exciting.
and just make it happen and just start writing and because the reason I want to just keep going is a
Mhm.
lot of times when I watch a TV series on, Apple TV or whatever, Netflix,
Mhm.
sometimes it's not 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. Sometimes it's a year, well, like The House of the Dragon, and you skip 2 years and it's like, oh, I forgot what happened, and you kind of lose interest. And
Yeah.
I just don't want that to happen. Of course, I don't know how many people bought the book yet, but when people start looking at, because I think that'll happen still, when people
Mhm.
start looking at it and start reading it, they'll go, "That was pretty good. Where's book two? Where's book three?" And it's there, and then they can just keep going. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what I didn't want to have dead time.
Yeah, yeah, that perspective is good. I'm glad that you thought about that because I think that is really important and people don't realize that, they think in that mindset too. Very cool. Well, what last question for you. What do you hope readers feel like when they finish your book, your first book?
I hope it kind of unlocks people's minds a little bit. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean we have to give up on ideas or beliefs we had, but it just unlocks our minds to a little bit more in terms of possible answers and possible scenarios. And also, I hope it gives people a little bit of hope, because we look at our current time frame that we live in right now. This is something I've heard from my kids, and it's, they think it's the worst. time ever, and it is a very challenging time.
Mm.
And but I've pointed out to him for a reason that maybe we lived in worse times. For instance, the Civil War.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it? 700,000 Americans died. More of them died in that war than all of the other wars.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a dark time,
Mm-hmm.
but we lived through it. We came through it. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, this is one of those three steps backwards sometime and one step forward. But over time, the arc of history, you know, eventually reaches out to truth and justice and the right
Mm-hmm.
winning. You know,
Yeah.
I hope that people have a little bit of hope. It's like things could go as bad because in the first part of the book, there's a little bit of discussion between the characters where they're looking back at American history, our
Mm-hmm.
time right now, and
Wow.
some
Wow.
very bad things that happened just beyond our time now. And they're like, well, we'll make sure that won't happen on our new world. And I hope that people realize that, every generation, my dad was in World War II, the greatest generation. And
Mm-hmm.
they were probably, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that right now, if we act to save what we have, we will stand in stone forever.
Mm-hmm.
They will call us, you, the
Mm-hmm.
greatest generation.
Mm-hmm.
The moment and the man or the woman came together, we stood up and we spoke up.
Mm-hmm.
So every generation has those moments, and some generations have bigger moments.
Mm-hmm.
This is a pretty big moment.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, for sure.
But I believe, and I have reason for saying this, and I can't say how, that we'll rise to the task,
Mm-hmm. I
but
think
it
so
won't
too.
won't be easy.
Yeah. Yeah. I
No
know it
one,
doesn't feel like it always, but we
no,
have to
no
have
one's
hope.
going to be able to sit in their home and hunker down and hope for something good to happen.
Yeah.
Have to go outside of what we normally do.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to go beyond ourselves. We'll have to climb a sheer rock face,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll do it
Yeah.
because we have it
Mm.
in us.
Very true. Yeah. All right. Well, Scott, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for being here. And I think your book is great. And it's been great, having you and discussing your book and all the things with you. And I wish you the best of luck with your future publishings. And I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah. Well, appreciate you spending some time with me. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you so much for listening or watching. If you wish to purchase Scott's book, please do so and leave him a really, great review if you liked it. You can purchase it through xlibris.com, through our online bookstore, or you can pick it up on Amazon or Barnes& and Noble. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.